put up with me talking for 10 minutes. And the last 5 minutes, I'll take any questions. So yeah, a few years ago, I think I did one of these sessions on career. And this is a lot easier because I think a good academic performance, we all know what that means. It's easier to define than if I say, what does a good career look like? People will have different, examples or views. But in a nutshell, it's to, get your certificates, what you're studying for, achieve very good grades, not to pass. So it's not just an academic performance. We said, empowerment, in great whatever in academic, great dominion, great dominion in academic performance, which means what, top 10%, top 1%. So you find out that what separates the very top students from the rest of the class isn't a lot. It's just a few key things which I will be, talking about. That's what will. So you're in school, you are a Christian. So how do you get this great dominion in academic performance? So like I've said, what is your goal? It is to get your certification with very good grades, with honors, with distinction. There's a second goal, which I'll come to in a moment. But okay, you're in school, you're a Christian. Have you set the expectations of what goals you want to achieve? You've already said, okay, it's to get top grades. What are the goals of the module that you're studying? It's usually written, in learning outcomes for each module. Have you actually read that to see, do my thoughts about what I want to get, do they line up with this module? What are your own expectations? What mark are you targeting? And most importantly, are you willing to work to achieve this target? So it's one thing to, I want to get 90%. Are you actually willing to put in the work to achieve 90%? And at this point, I think I've got to draw, for those of us who've come from, a country other than the UK, there are differences between the educational system we're used to and, the Western educational system. So this is what I talked about, the second goal. Critical thinking. So I'm using myself as an example, where my first degree was mostly I am going to read whatever books, and then just give it back, unload it back to the examiner at the end of the day and pass, and that's it. But here is not so much reading. You have to actually begin to learn how to think critically. I have jokingly tell people that, look, if you've studied in this country and you have not developed critical thinking, you should really go back to the university and ask for your money back, because you've not, so you have to develop a sense of, when you see a piece of data, a piece of information, as it were, standing outside of it and looking around, seeing the, the arguments from all sides. Now, it might tell you what you would prefer not to know, because that's always the danger in, critically analyzing things, but do not ignore it. So are you willing to work to achieve the target? Once you're willing to achieve, you've identified a mark, write it down if possible. Write down what your expectations are, what mark is your target, and are you willing? How are you going to go about it? And then you go into your course, review, you study the course content, you survey chapters, you read them before lectures, you read them after lectures, and you make study notes. And if your class or your lecturer allows you to record lectures, then please do, because there's nothing like hearing it again, away from the heat of battle. So intend to learn something with each class you attend. Ask intelligent questions, sit in front. At the end of the day, yes, it is objective. The exams are objective, but because you're dealing with lecturers who are human beings, there's a subjective element. If they know you are someone who sits in class, who actively participates, then yeah, if you've written something down in an exam, they're more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt, as I know this person, I know the way they think. So take notes, review and edit notes, and you already know the way, when we're talking of education. So for most of my talk, it's looking at higher education, so undergraduates, masters, postgraduates, and all of this will, apply. There's a quick analogy I use, to differentiate what you're actually learning, what are your outcomes. in each of these, at each of these levels. So basically, at undergraduate, your instructor tells you, oh, there's a tiger in this forest. I don't know where it is, but it might be northwest corner. Now I'll give you a gun, you learn how to use it, and you go shoot the tiger. So that's undergraduate. In masters, it's, oh, there's a tiger in the forest. Just find a way to, capture it and kill it. It's up to you. And then in your PhD, it's, I don't know if there's a tiger. I don't know if there's a forest. All I know is some writings that someone did. You need to find out whether there's a tiger, whether there's a forest, and, reach your own conclusions, which is why which is why a PhD lifestyle can be very lonely, because you could go 3-4 years and find out there wasn't a forest in the first place. But if that is what you've concluded that yes, and that's true, then you've actually saved a lot of people a lot of bother down the line. So that alone could be your thesis. So so attend tutorials and study groups. So there's benefits. And when you attend these groups, take active parts. There is a difference between I'm studying to pass and I'm studying to explain to someone else. If possible, lead these groups, explain to someone else. You will think about things differently. You will actually think, I'm going to say this in front of a lot of people. I better get my facts right. And that actually embeds your knowledge. Read relevant books and publications, online resources, seek experience. I mean, we've got a community here. There's someone who's actually done or who's done that module before. If for nothing else, approach the pastor. The pastor would know who to direct you to. If you are finding, it difficult, at least a few of the brothers can spare some of their time. And then the next one is obviously make the goals, make the plans. I think Sister Diane is going to talk about planning, so I wouldn't go too much into that, but the goals will help you because they'll provide direction, they'll increase your attention and focus, they'll increase your motivation. And if you can grade yourself, as in week by week, track your progress, then you can see your progress over time towards that big goal. And then make lists, after every nobody knows it, except you're a genius. Nobody knows everything the first time they're taught. So this is why you have to revise. I think the rule is about three hours of revision for every 1 hour of lecture. So people to chase, people to see, things to do. And then you work on yourself, you check, like I've said, you take tests, you take past exams, memorize definitions and formula, know the time of exam to expect. Nobody is going to expect you to cram the whole book, but you've got to show that you can apply, the knowledge you've gained. Something that has always helped me is that when I'm taught something in class, I try to find ways of how can I apply this outside, in real life. Because if I try to apply it in real life and I am successful, then I think that process is embedded in my head. And then in 2020, the guy who invented copy and paste died. And I was reading his obituary, and in the comments, someone made a humorous comment saying a whole generation of college students pay their respects, will be eternally grateful to you. Don't do that. Don't copy and paste. There are real strict rules against plagiarism in this, so the software, is it on it in, and it already has the data of everything that has been written. So if you are going to copy and paste, make sure you cite the references correctly. It's not just, oh, we're going to mark you down and you have to redo it. You could get thrown off the course for plagiarism. So it is very, very, very serious. And like I said, also coming to study in this country, be curious. Do not come in with your assumptions. I think most of us tend to do it. Oh, I mean, you come in and like, I got my degree. I was studying with an oil lamp. Here there's 24 hours. Oh, I'll just ace it. If you do that, not only will you not, I mean, you will be surprised at how much you will fail. That's the fact. Let me put it that way. So be curious. Don't come in with assumptions of, I know how to do it, or, try to, a little humility goes a long way. And then manage your time. I think that's left to, the planning, this thing, but manage your time. And then the exams, or things you have to submit. So there are essays, exams, reports. When you are asked a question, try to understand what it is you're being asked. Because there's this confirmation bias. You hear a few words and you string it together, you think you know what they are asking. It's a very common pitfall for those of us who come from outside. We think we are hearing the question, but that's not the question that's being asked. Try to understand, what are they actually asking me? What do they want me to, what is the outcome? What do they want me to demonstrate? Don't leave things until last minute, obviously. So the night before, that's when you're studying the whole night. So things will always go wrong. Leave time for review, contingency planning. So yeah, that's basically all. I mean, most of us have been students, so none of this is actually new. But are there any questions in the last 5 minutes? Are there any questions? I'll be happy to entertain. Dr. Toby. Yeah, just say it. I'll echo it, please. Just. Yeah. 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 So yeah, let me echo that for those online. So undergraduate is you have to study to get that degree. But then masters and PhDs, it's by being a means to an end. I won't talk about the ends. I think we know what that is. But it goes back to that first question. What exactly is your goal? So if you are going to be dividing your time by, working to pay bills, are you going to, is that your focus? That goal you're studying for, that is actually your goal. It might not just be, like you say, the study is a means to a goal. If I pass at 50% and I get a master's, I mean, no employer is going to ask me what was my score. I use it to get another job. And that's fine. But in terms of, we're talking about great dominion, and what exactly are you aiming for? So it might be on the undergraduate to get a first class. That will open doors that a third class will not open. So you need to be very clear about that from the beginning. Yes, Brother Banjo, please. Yeah, just talk. I'll repeat it for those online. How much education is enough education?
Because, for example, let me give you an example. Where I work, for example, I'm having an interview, or I'm having a job interview, and the director didn't even go to college.
Yeah.
But he's extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
I've worked with colleagues that are extremely knowledgeable, but they didn't even go to college.
Yeah.
You understand? So, and these are the guys I'm reporting to. So at what point am I actually just wasting my time? You understand? Because a lot of them got their mortgage at age 20 and they're almost done with their mortgage.
Yeah.
So, you understand? And they're entire, so
no. So
those are some of the things I just think about, and I'm like,
no, I think we've discussed this. No, that's fine. So although that's slightly out of this, but I'll just give you two things. One, somebody told me, they're complaining about back from Nigeria, why we didn't really study in Nigeria based on what we see here. And someone else now said, if you think that certificate doesn't mean anything, try not having it and coming here. So first, they might not have had college, like you say, in this country, but the system here would have allowed them to move on. If you come in here without college education, you're going nowhere. That's number one. You won't get that job. And then number two, yes, there's a tendency of us to amass, the degrees, because it's all a question of, I'll just read and unload it back to the examiner. But when the focus now changes to critical thinking, what can this thing actually help me do? How can it help me improve my society? Then there isn't a need to, gather so many degrees, as a means of prestige or whatever. But that's, I tell my wife sometimes that if I knew what I knew now, I probably would not worry about the PhD at all. I would have just, gone straight and started making money. But that's a different thing. I mean, there are home expectations, there were, but at the end of the day, it still comes down to you. After you have, like you said, looked at the society, you only can decide, do I need this degree? Or would I be better off doing something else? So I think it's a personal thing. All right. So thank you. I think at the end of all the empowerment, there will be questions or something, or maybe so you can ask any questions you don't have there. Praise the Lord. I call on the next speaker.